Hey guys, today I'm just going to show you how to do a level 2 Nite Finder modification. And I have all the supplies here, not the tools, but here are the supplies. And I actually already started, but then I figured, oh well, I might as well do a video write-up for you guys. So here we go. You need one Nite Finder, I gutted. I already gutted mine to get all the springs, plunger tube, and whatnot. And I have here is, this is what you should be keeping: the plunger rod, plunger head, and the catch. And you don't need the stock spring. I'm going to take that off. I already, as you can see, did the O-ring and electrical tape, but I'll do that again later. And you're going to need whatever you want your new plunger tubes to be. Level 2 modification just means plunger tube replacement. I'm using polycarbonate 1 1/8 inch diameter polycarbonate tubing, and you can use 3/4 inch PVC, you can use PETG, doesn't really matter. Just whatever you want to do, use that. You're going to want your replacement springs. This is a K26 spring. I'm going to be using about this much of it, about that much. If I place my tube next to it, just my tube, and you can see I'm not aligning it perfectly, my tube plus a little bit, and that's where I'm going to cut it off. You're going to need some screws, and I have these ones here, and this bolt and nut right there. A PVC coupler, some Schedule 40 PVC or Schedule 80 PVC. I'm using Schedule 80, doesn't really matter again. And some silicone grease. And this is the Ace Hardware stuff that I usually use. It's the best, but I actually also found a replacement that works just as well from Home Depot. So this is it. It looks like Harvey's silicone grease. It's the exact same stuff, just from Home Depot. It's actually a little bit cheaper, so I'm going to start getting this from now on. And don't forget your safety goggles. I forgot, I'm also going to be using an Ace number 2 spring as my catch and trigger spring. So of course the first thing you want to do is take your Nite Finder, gut it, unscrew it, and take out everything except I left the trigger in. You can take it out if you want to. I'm going to take it out later actually, so I might as well take it out. But anyhow, you're going to need to open up this front part. I cut off that front piece here, and then I use my Dremel and just Dremel that out until I could fit my new plunger tube in. So it depends on what your plunger tube is going to be to how well or how much you're going to need to Dremel out. So see, my plunger tube fits in just pretty nicely. It's not perfect circle. There's still the gap on the side there. You can kind of see it's not 100% perfect, but you know what? That is a-okay. So of course the first thing you want to do is next thing you're going to want to do is electrical tape your plunger head. Take off the O-ring, and this will be pretty much the exact same as my level 1 tutorial if you've seen that. You're going to want to take off the O-ring, wrap it in as much electrical tape as you need to fit nicely in your plunger tube, and then put the O-ring back on. So really, again, it depends what material you are going to be using for your plunger tube, the inner diameter of that, for how much electrical tape you need. I really like using this thinner electrical tape. It's half the width of normal electrical tape, the normal black stuff I've been using, and so it's really nice. It just fits on here much more nicely without all the excess. And so I highly suggest using this, or I have a multi-pack, like a 5-pack of different colors of this thinner electrical tape. So if you modify a lot of Nite Finders, I definitely suggest this. Alright guys, here I have my springs cut. This is my Ace number 2 spring, and oh, that's rolling away from me, but I cut it down so the trigger or the catch spring is the exact same size, and my excess is actually just perfect to be the new trigger spring. I don't have the trigger spring with me right here, but all you have to do is just cut down. The important part is just to cut down the Ace number 2 spring to be the exact same length as the catch spring, and depending on how, or I guess no, for pretty much for everything, for the level 2 mod, since we are still using the stock plunger rod and we are prohibited how long the spring can be by the length of the plunger rod, you're going to want your spring to be about this size. As you can see, compared next to the stock spring, it's maybe an inch longer. Not even an inch, yeah, about an inch longer, actually. That is my K26 I just cut down, and you can see it next to the plunger tube. I'll set it even. So it's just shy short of the plunger tube, as you can see, and it's good. I made this so it's just gonna have a tiny bit of pre-compression, and I might have to cut it down a little bit more later, but I'd rather it be too long than too short, because I just like to have it just perfect so when the blaster is primed, I have 100% full compression, and that is just a preference of mine. You guys don't have to have that. Full compression does put a lot of wear on your spring, so it depends how much you plan on using. Yeah, like I don't really plan on using this that much, but just so you know, the spring is kind of, I guess, up to the exact length you want to make it, but I'm going to try to aim for full compression with mine. Alright, before I put this on, I just decided at the last minute, I am going to put some super glue in this hole before I put the screw on, and that is just because I have actually had the plunger rod and the plunger head break off before, because the screw wasn't strong enough for the spring, and I'm not sure if that was just a fluke, one-time thing, or a dud, but I'm going to do that now just in case, and if I need to cut down the spring, then I can just cut it down straight from on the plunger rod. So you can see right there where my thumb is, that's where the trigger spring goes, and then up here, it's harder to see where my thumb is. Right here is where the catch spring goes, in this little housing right there. And if you remember from my level 1 video, the ace number 2 spring doesn't fit so well in this little area. It's kind of tight, it just won't fit. I'm not gonna try to force it on the video right now. You'll see that for yourself. And so what you have to do is use your Dremel and just widen that up a tiny bit so your spring can fit in it. I'm gonna do that right now. Okay, I have here my coupler, and I just put in my piece of PVC and left a little tiny bit at the end. What it's gonna do is gonna fit in here in my plunger tube. Since it does not fit right now, again, depending on what your plunger tube ends up being, you're just going to wrap it in electrical tape until it does fit. I'm going to do that right now. Okay, here I wrapped it in E-tape, and I stuck it on my plunger tube and gooped it on with some nice Plumbers goop. And then I wrapped a few layers of E-tape around it just to make sure it's a little bit cleaner. There is some like little goop marks and glue marks on here, and I'm about to clean those off and let this dry and let it cure for a full 24 hours before you use it. Alright guys, I actually have a friend here who came over, and I finished this up while he was working. It was pretty loud because he was using the Dremel, so I did not create all the rest of the segments, but it's kind of pretty easy to explain everything else that I've done. After I finished letting this dry, the coupler dry on the front, then I inserted everything, the plunger rod and plunger head, into the plunger tube, the clear plunger tube that I have here. And of course, if you use a different plunger tube, then it might not be clear. And I put it all together, made sure I had a good seal, fit well, lubed it up, and then I did just like you may have seen in my last modification tutorial video. I put in the plunger rod in the catch spring place, which it was pretty difficult to do, but I ended up getting it. And then the first thing I did was I tested by priming, make sure that everything catches fine, pull the trigger, make sure the trigger works fine. It did. And so I screwed in the plunger tube just right here. It's hard to see because my plunger tube is clear, but you can kind of see there's a line just to the right of my thumb. There's a ridge on the inside of the blaster where the spring rest is. And just to the right of that would be where the plunger tube is. And so I just drilled right in there and put some screws on both sides to mechanically fasten. Just that way it's not glued, so it's much easier to disassemble in the future in case there's any problems. And then also in the front, I added a bolt and a nut here on the front of my coupler that goes through the polycarbonate plunger tube, through the PVC that I have in there, and again through the plunger tube and out tied it off with a nut. And on top I have the zip tie, and the zip tie I had to drill my own hole. I used that drill bit. I don't know what size it is. It's 3/8 inch, I believe. or something around there, and I just drilled through the top. You can kind of see that this right there is the original screw port. Just above that, I drilled and zip tied it off to make sure it's tight, because now that I have the new bigger plunger tube, I cannot use that screw port. And so that is all. I'm probably going to minimize this, but otherwise it shoots fine, and I'm going to cut to a firing test. Okay, here's a quick firing test. I'm going to load up the speed loader. These darts are not made for, or I mean not these darts, this barrels just are slightly too long. These are 8-inch barrels, and this probably does not need an 8-inch barrel, probably a 6.5-inch. But anyhow, it's a nice K26 pullback. As you can see, I have full compression, which is really, really nice. Exactly what I wanted. And fire. Still shoots plenty hard. And there we go. That is the end of my level 2 Nite Finder modification tutorial. So if you have any questions or comments, leave them below. Plans for this blaster, I'm probably just gonna end up minimizing it, put the end cap on here, and make a proper barrel, and then I'm done. Another thing to note is in the back, since I do have it where the priming handle right here does hit the back of the shell, I have just a little bit of felt right there. I have a felt pad from my slugs that is cut in half with some scissors, stuck them on there, and that just kind of pads the back a tiny bit. It's still a very, very loud blaster when I dry fire it, but at least the plunger head does not hit the front coupler, and so there's not going to be any stress there. All the stress is going to be right on the back here on the plunger rod, and frankly, I have a ton of plunger rods, so I'm not really afraid, and I don't really care if it breaks. If the shell breaks, though, that is a problem. Anyhow, thank you for watching. I wish you good luck on making your own level 2 Nite Finder.